All right, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole to another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast, a very special edition with my friend Patrick. You guys know every time he's on, we're going to talk about something controversial, and he's rarely wrong about these things, which kind of bugs me because I'm not saying he's Patrick. You're a realist. All right, so tell people who you are real quick and what you do before we dive in.
Good to see you, Raf. My name is Patrick Dennis. I think um, this might be either my third or my fourth visit
I think it's at
with
least your
you.
fourth.
Might be my fourth. Um, Currently the CEO of Avaya, a company that makes communications software and solutions for people around the world. You and I got to know each other when I ran Guidance Software, the makers of Encase, then Extra Hop
Back in the
exited.
day.
Yeah, way back in the day. Exited Venafi to CyberArk before the Palo deal. Yeah, and big fan of the podcast. So also mark that down. Big fan of the pod.
I appreciate that. You were on one recently called The Next Exit, and I think I've listened to that episode like 3 times, twice on dashboard time, and once just sitting at my desk staring at the ceiling because there are so many nuggets of wisdom in there about like how to run an organization. I think some of it is just there's so many hard things that are like they seem easy on paper, and then you go to execute them, and you're like, this is tough.
Yeah.
But that aside, I can't help but like the hair on the back of my neck has been standing for a bit. I can't help but think that we're in a very precarious point in cyber's time continuum here,
Okay.
where there's this like interesting confluence of bad market dynamics in terms of like what's happening in the global theater. Capital markets are in this, and this is the part I know least about, so that's why I defer to you. But like they feel kind of weird right now, not in a good position. Companies from the vendor side have been running at multiples and that far exceed where rational logic would say that that's too much. And then like when you look at the customers out there, the market is tightening. Customers are starting to ask, why do I need this? And what am I taking out if I'm buying this? And this feels like a really bad place to be in, like a inexperienced vendor with a whimsical leadership team. How do you see this?
Oh, you've always been the guy that knows how to ask like a question we could probably spend the whole time on. So I'll try to I'll try to help us through it, and then maybe you stop me when there's something interesting there for this community. I like to think stay close enough to them. But why don't we let's start off with a couple facts, and then we're going to get into the answers to your questions. So the first one is we've talked about it on this podcast before, but at less precarious moments. So my suspicion is maybe people won't remember it. But if you buy a stock today, okay, what you are paying for is you're paying the present value for all of the future cash that's going to be collected. Okay. And that should be at a discount. So you're paying, if you expect the value of the company to be this in the future, you're making a bet that says, I think the company's value is going to be this. I don't want to pay that because it's in the future, but I'm willing to pay this because I'm confident. And the confident part is sort of the important part. And we can dig into this. So let's put a pin in the first point. First point is people are less confident in future values.
Yeah.
That's true in software, broadly speaking. So
yeah.
right. And the place where, most of where you and most of the friends of the pod have been insulated is the last place or the most durable place in software has been cyber.
Yep.
And that changed over the course of the last couple of weeks. You could see
Yep.
it coming if you paid close attention. And we talked about it here almost probably a year ago.
About a year ago. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm not at all surprised, but it's different on the day it happens. So park that. Okay. Um, the it can a related issue. Okay, but I think we can maybe talk about it separately. And I break it out because I think this will be the part this audience gets like really stuck on. Um, CIO budgets are expected to increase this year by more than 5%. I track that statistic and have for like 20 years now. It's actually a pretty big number. So it's not that the CIO's spending is bad. Okay. It's also interesting. Security still remained the highest spending priority. Okay. For the year. So you might go, okay, so if aggregate spending's up and security is still a priority, like what's the big problem? Well, the problem is all of those CIOs have to go implement AI, and the
Yeah.
cost of AI is far greater than 5% of their budget.
Yeah.
So they're looking through and they're taking an assessment of all the things that they're spending money on, and they're trying to figure out like, hey, how do we, fund what we need to do in AI and in security, um, at the expense of other things. And so certain categories have taken a bigger whack. Applications software broadly is down almost 15%. Communication software is down almost 20. So there's kind of two ways to look at the market. Like, first one is security still a priority. The second one is there's just not enough money to fund the AI initiatives.
Well,
So
yeah. So I
two
feel like
dynamics, right? Certainty drives stock prices, right?
yeah.
A lot of what drives certainty is customer spending, but the customer spending is moving. Is that clear?
Yeah. And I feel like it needs to be said that like just because there is intent to spend X amount of percent on cyber doesn't actually translate to signature on check because
Sure.
security is a priority, but you've got to innovate. Or, like, given I've had this conversation several times, was like, given the choice between innovating and being competitive and being secure, I know which way that's going every single time.
Yeah. Well, okay. So now let's talk about like, the last time when I was on this podcast and got myself in trouble, which appears to have a year cleansing period. You'll call me back a year later. You're like, maybe they can deal with you again. The gauntlet I threw down was that I've never worked in a sector that has had more expensive software that has such little use. So
Yeah.
what's happening, I think, now is it's coming home to roost that CISOs have bought a lot of stuff that they don't do much with.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're if things get a little more frugal, CIO is going to look at you and be like, "Hey, Raf, you bought like 20 things. You're using 3. Why am I not ditching 17?" And then
Yeah.
maybe you got to pick your favorite hobby horse that didn't get fully deployed yet, but it's got a grand future. You can pick 1 or 2 of those. You're not going to pick 17.
And we're seeing it everywhere. We are absolutely seeing this happening everywhere because I've got friends in the industry that were talking about like, hey, our renewal rates are dropping. What's going on?
Right.
And you can tie renewal rate to adoption and customer sentiment uh, almost linearly.
Yeah, I mean, so, and by the way, what gets weird in cyber, um, most people only experience full customer churn. You don't see as much what in the industry is called downsell.
Yeah.
But when these things start to move around, like you'll start to see downsell. So maybe they're like, hey, we've got this product that's really for advanced users. We paid for it for the entire security team because it's a buy seat product, but I only really need 5 seats. Or I only really need this level of protection in this one division. And of course, we're going to go back and make the argument we've used, throughout our whole careers, which is, well, if there's any window in the house that's open, the adversary can get through. But we also all know that it's easier to get through the one on the first floor than it is on the second,
Right.
right?
An analogy absolutely holds. Yep.
So, when the money is good and things are flowing freely, yeah, you protect all those things. But that's not That is not as critical in this moment, which is sort of the third shift that has happened. This will be probably the biggest leap for your audience, so I'll take a shot at it, and you tell me if I do an okay job. Um, because AI has threatened the integrity of other industries, even things like pharmaceuticals, okay, the biggest threat is no longer um, a cyber event or a cyber adversary. The biggest event is whether or not there's any efficacy in your business, and it goes way beyond software. And so now the challenge isn't going up and trying to get all these dollars in the face of trying to prove an unproven threat. The challenge is going up and trying to get those dollars in the face of another threat that is absolutely proven.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because there's a there's this problem we've had in our industry where you've got two potential avenues. CISO says, "I need money to stop this threat."
Mhm.
They either give him the money, he spends it, the event happens anyway, or
Sure.
they don't give him the money and nothing happens. And both scenarios are bad.
Both are bad. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Whereas like right now, it's much easier to demonstrate that there are implications for AI in many sectors that are real and threatening business models. So if you're a C-suite executive right now and you're given the choice between $1 and it either has to go to advancing your business and or defending it from AI, or betting on your CISO who either blew you up already with the dollar you gave him the last time, he or she the last time, or
Yeah.
preventing you from an unprovable. It's very, very difficult right now. And
Well,
so I think cyber has tended to always be very insular, because they've never really had to make business cases. And I've talked about that with you before. I know it's wildly
yeah.
unpopular, but it's true.
Well, and we've had like years and years we were saying for a long time, you can get away with this because it's not big enough, but then this big event will happen and somebody's going to go out of business and something's
Yeah.
going to happen. It's going to be that watershed moment. And I feel like we had the watershed moment after the watershed moment after the watershed moment after the watershed moment. And very like the dip happened. People bought it at the dip. Stock
Mhm.
went back up. Public companies survived. And so now you've got, I mean, what happens? CISOs get fired, people churn,
Yep.
lawyers get involved. Somebody gets
Yep.
dragged to Washington and grilled for a
Yep.
couple of minutes.
Yep.
Eh,
Yeah, and we pay it off. I mean, I've had
yeah,
to, I wasn't running the company when the incident happened here, but I've paid that bill to the
yeah,
SEC,
yeah,
right? And by the way, like what's really interesting about that was like we have a pretty robust program. Um, we got caught up in some of the SolarWinds stuff. I think there's a lot of people that got caught up in that.
yeah.
Um, and so I'm not even sure that was a great demonstration, even though I think that was the intent, was like to
Mhm.
demonstrate to everybody, like, oh, if you don't do things, you're bad and you're going to get
Yeah.
fined. But like the reality is, I'm not sure they picked the best example to go make that point. Myself and a few
Well,
other people got caught up in that. And again, we pay the
yeah.
fine, and we have a do we have a more robust program today than we did when the incident happened? We sure do. Do I think that that incident had anything to do with the change in the robustness of our program?
Right,
I do
right,
not.
right. And
Right?
but Equifax had the same sort of watershed moment for them, and it was a oops, things happen. And I haven't been in this industry this long, right? At some point mentally, I transitioned from you're going to like ruin your customers' lives to like, you know what? Shit happens. At some point, you're going to do something. Your smartest employee, your best call center person, your CISO, somebody's going to click a button, something's going to happen, and you're going to go, ah, crap. And not all the technology in the world is going to prevent that. Can you minimize impact? Can you lessen damage? Can you reduce exposure? All of those things can be done,
Sure.
but preventative is got a limitation. And when you're talking about like an existential crisis, like, hey, our competitors are churning out, I don't know, uh, formulations for a drug 10x faster than we are because they're using AI.
At a
Like,
wildly
damn the
lower cost.
torpedoes, this is happening.
Right. That's right. That's absolutely right. So I think if you're like, so now let's back all the way up. Let me try to connect a few dots. Okay. Certainty, all right, is what drives a stock price or a value. Even in a private company, it drives a value, right? You're going to pay a price today for the future value of that cash. Okay. So if that cash is less certain, there's either less cash or you're going to measure it, sooner, right?
Right.
In either case, the number's smaller, right? Part of what also drives that certainty is customer spending, and they are spending less in this category.
Mm-hmm.
And you can draw a through line for why they're spending less in this category, because they're spending in things that are into around or related to AI. And if you just want, like, let me cherry pick two statistics, just like I cherry picked how far down comm software and application software, down almost 15 in apps, down almost 20 in comms, semis in that same period, which includes NVIDIA. Okay, we're up 50 in infrastructure software, okay, which includes the stuff that is wrapped around AI infrastructure software, was up 25.
Yeah.
So it's very, very easily to see where the money went, right? Like customers are spending in AI. You're seeing valuations increase because certainty is increasing in AI. And I think what's just super hard for folks that are in cyber is, and we'll bring up like a topic. I don't want to give people too much to think about at one time, but you probably remember I complained that many cyber companies were traded or started in or around where the zero interest rate policy was in place.
Yeah. ZERP. Yep.
Right. So ZERP inflated things.
Oh yeah.
Okay, to begin with, and now you're facing these headwinds, and so the categories that are in the most difficult spot are the ones that experience the benefits of ZERP. And at the risk of me giving you like one of those hot mic moments that your audience seems to love, dude, everybody complains about bubbles, but they never complain about a bubble when it's being made. When the bubble's being made, everybody loves a bubble. You only complain about the bubble when somebody pokes a hole in it and it shoots all around.
All the air goes out. Yeah.
All the air goes out. So like here we have cyber. The bubble's been being pumped up like literally for years and years and years, and the air is going to come out fast.
Yeah. It's coming out fast. Like we are witnessing it. You've got companies. I think we talked about this last time you were on. You got companies that borrowed when money was basically free. They spent it like it was water. They're running low, and the cost of borrowing is much higher. Ergo, your valuation just dropped, and now you're looking to borrow with a. You were worth $2 billion. Now you're worth $500 million. You're like, oh hell, I got to give away more to get less. What's happening here?
Yeah, and to put that in perspective, I don't want to get really technical, but like just let me give you like some mental metric. So in a ZERP period, you could kind of expand EBITDA margin, so profit, by like 2 to 5% and still get a good return. Nowadays, it's like north of 10 to 15 in that same period. So what people don't realize is you need like 3x the level of productivity to get to return math that might make sense. You're not going to get the 3x in productivity, especially if spending is down. So you're going to get repriced.
And this is like one of those scenarios where those organizations that had focused exclusively on grow the business, don't worry about profit, just worry about revenue, and again, just top line. It's just drop money, and don't matter how much it's cost to make it, are suddenly finding themselves in some really hot water. And we're seeing it. Like you're watching companies panic. Like the layoffs are in full force, and I suspect there'll probably be more. There's a lot of tightening. There's a lot of like sales cycles are getting longer. That's a good indicator of things to come.
Yeah. Now, let me also just try to take this one off the table because, whatever. I love this podcast because I say all the controversial stuff here because my primary audience doesn't necessarily come here. They should, because they get all the straight scoop, right? You know, like none of this layoff thing has anything to do with AI. Like that's insane. It doesn't have anything to do with like these companies waking up one day and finding out that they've got a Raf that does a lot with AI and he's wildly productive and Patrick's not productive. Dude, that is all just layoff washing. They are just using whatever is the narrative to not have to suck up the fact they've been spending too much, haven't been paying any attention to efficiency, lost a bunch of money, interest rates changed. Like it is wildly hyperbolic.
So wasn't that like literally just the other day? Was it Jack Dorsey's company block? Yeah. They laid off like 30% of their workforce or some crazy number.
4,000 people. 4,000 people on a 10,000 person company.
And everybody was talking about how it's due to AI and productivity. And like one person I was watching, I think it was on CNBC or something. I was like, hold on a second. Wait a minute. But they are like like twice the size and less than half of the revenue of their competitors. This isn't really about AI. And it was like a shock to the guests on that panel.
No. By the way, that is not me saying, don't hear something that I didn't say. Okay. Like my organization, just as one that I measure all the time, is getting a great yield out of AI technology. Certainly in development, believe it or not, in HR, some places in operations. So like that stuff is all real. I will just say that the scope, scale, and level of the recalibration and these layoffs is not such that it can be tagged to this. And by the way, if you go back and you look at all these companies, they're the ones that never just have the guts to tell real people what they're doing. They're always the ones that are like, oh, we would never lay anybody off unless there was some existential crisis. And then they manufacture an existential crisis.
Right. Yeah.
So just don't believe any of them. Like, doesn't matter. Public, private equity backed, especially if it's big private equity backed. Those guys lie about that stuff all the time. No way that you woke up on a Monday and figured out you need half your people. It's not how it works.
That's been like the talk of the financial podcast for a while that I listen to, and like the morning shows and stuff. Is like, okay, well, are we entering a time period where we're going to wipe out huge segments of 50 to 60% of white collar workers because AI? But I'm gonna say probably not, because that sounds like a large number.
You want a really funny one, right? So like I run this company that I run now, among other things, sells software that is consumed by contact center agents. Okay, I'm gonna highlight the word agent for a second for this audience, because like I know you all are cyber people, but like you've also turned on the TV and you've heard all the agents are going away, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what you've heard? All of them? And it's always already happened. It's a precipitous drop in agent populations.
Right.
Dude, seat count hasn't changed at all. There's still 40,000 people hired into contact center jobs every single week. It has not changed like almost at all. The US is down by 5%. Okay. But by the way, offshore hubs are up by 15%. There's just no efficacy in any of this stuff that is getting said. And by the way, and again, I'm the industry everybody is saying is the one collapsing. It's collapsing by 5% down in the US and 15% up in international markets. There's zero tangible evidence that there has been an employment issue created by this. And then for like extra credit, all right, in 1865, there was an economist named William Stanley Jevons, and he wrote a book called The Coal Question, which had everything to do with the fact that if prices come down, we want to buy more stuff and we will just suck it all up with our demand for more stuff. And it's called the Jevons paradox. And it has happened very, very reliably across the economy over years. So like all these people are nuts. The job market's not collapsing because of AI. If anything, productivity is up. Like what's happening is just good old fashioned repricing from bubbles. And
look,
and sorry, and the value is shifting, which is what's questioning the certainty part. Like, where someone's going to get the value that's unclear.
Well, the certain you keep coming back to certainty, and I think that's what drives financial markets is certainty. You get
Yeah,
the geopolitics we live in now, where tariffs show up and change in
sure.
within the hour, sometimes on the whim. You got, I mean, we just opened up a can of whoop on our arch enemies over there in Iran.
Which, by the way,
Like
when we scheduled this, wasn't even an issue. The
wasn't
time,
yeah. So
yeah,
yeah,
right,
here we are. Like
yeah,
there's all kinds of uncertainty and the knock on effect. I think you go from okay, well, oil is going to like oh we're gonna have all these things like yeah, but like closing the Strait of Hormuz, like a ton of trade stops,
yeah,
right? Like this is not just oh we're going to be firing bombs at each other and hopefully things happen in the way we want them. But like globally, this has knock on effects on markets. It has knock on effect on trade. And, obviously attacker activity goes up. And then you go, well, but how do we deal with that? I think there's a complexity to this that's really
that's why I keep
hard.
calling it certainty.
Yeah.
If you and I just enumerated a list, okay, and we're for whatever, maybe to neither of our benefits, we're roughly the same age. If we made a list of the uncertainties when we were, call it 10, 15, and 20 years old,
Yeah.
and we made a list of the uncertainties today, today's list would be longer.
Way, way longer. Yeah. Because think about just, I think one of the things I keep hearing about is like global supply chain disruptions, right?
Sure.
And Nvidia stock can keep climbing, and please keep going. Sell all the AI chips, but like we're gonna have to get those raw materials from somewhere. And if they don't teleport. We don't get a lot of it local domestically, so that comes from somewhere. That's all supported by infrastructure and people and companies.
Sure.
And like when all that certainty goes completely to hell, it figuratively, not literally, figuratively blows up everything in its wake. And I feel like there's like the first time somebody asked you if you wanted to play 52 pickup in cards,
Yeah.
you're like, that sounds great. And
That's yeah. Sounds different
like
the second time, right?
right. I feel like the last couple times this has happened, the global economy and especially in cyber has sort of gone, we'll be fine. This time, I
Mhm.
think it's different because it's like, okay, we've seen the other, like the last couple. I'm gonna hang back. And I tell you what, man, I have never been asked as a vendor this much. This meant this in such a uh, drumbeat and repeated manner from a swath of people I speak with is what am I taking out if I'm bringing this in? Because security's always been added. Just
Yeah.
stack on. Just keep stacking.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's triage a couple things. I'm going to try to give you some. You invited me on, so I guess it's my job to try to give you some value. So I'm going to try.
I'll keep
So
taking notes.
We have to buy some hardware, which we modify, put software on, and ship. Okay. And I'll leave the supplier out for the benefit of that supplier, but it would be a vendor you would all recognize. Okay. Serious system supplier, name brand, been around for a long time. Okay. They are adjusting our hardware prices weekly now
Yeah.
because of the memory shortage. Okay.
Yeah. I've heard this.
Pause, put a pin in there. One example. Next one. When we deploy our software into a public cloud, like as you might imagine, we stand up a tenant, runs a bunch of scripts, stands it up. What percentage of the time do you think that's failing right now? Where public clouds don't have the infrastructure for what we're asking?
I
Should
don't
be
think I want to
zero,
guess.
right? Don't
I would.
you want to
The
say
answer
zero?
should be near zero.
It's like 90%.
Whoa.
So these big companies that run these big clouds, again, will protect the name of the not so innocent here. Okay. They don't have the power. They don't have the infrastructure any longer to guarantee all of us access to compute and memory.
Interesting.
Now, in their defense, most of them go out and they figure things out and they tweak it. But like, it's no different than when I used to have a person in a data center and like didn't get the job done at the end of the day. So, what's really crazy is mix global uncertainty, geopolitics in with the fact these clouds aren't reliable anymore and you can't get stuff from a supplier without the prices going all over the place. Believe it or not, you're going to see a move back on prem. Because by the way, the best AI systems in the world are on prem.
Yeah.
So the snow globe got shook, and there's a few people that are late to the party. I love you guys, but you cyber guys are going to be late to the party because the party was good and it lasted a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been coming for a little while, but you're going to hear that song. Remember that song? It's closing time. One last call for alcohol. Get your whiskey or beer. I don't know.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah. So I think we're going to hear it in this business, unfortunately.
So what happens? Do you just see a giant wipeout? I mean, because the VCs and the PEs will still make their money somehow. Are you just thinking we're going to get just a massive wipeout of companies, or it'll just collapse? Are we going to see like just a massive buying spree of the big boys because now they've got cash and frankly everybody else doesn't?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the big guys are certainly, what has certainly changed is a well-funded and successful public company has the largest advantage. I would argue even over large private equity right now. Private equity is going to have to clear out the book that they wrote, sometime between, during any part of the ZERP period, whenever they bought into it, right? We could argue about when that started and stopped, right? But they're going to have to go clear the book out. That's going to mean cram down. Well, if they don't go bankrupt because they're not too heavily levered. But the good news for cyber is leverage was always like sort of moderate. So I don't think you're going to see as much of that. I think what you're going to see is a lot of horizontal trades and down rounds. And who that really is going to affect, unfortunately, is the employees.
Yeah.
So
it always does somehow, Patrick. It always somehow does.
Yeah, in fairness, it's true. I mean, at the end of the day, they don't sit in the right part of the pref stack, no matter what way you cut it. But
yeah, it's true.
So to put in perspective, here's what's crazy. Deal volume. So if you call ZERP like sort of like late 2020 to like 2023, okay, peak deal volume was really in like 2022, and there are for software M&A, and it's like greater than $1 billion, I think is where I did the cut line. So somebody can fact check me. I'm sure they will in the comments. There's like $209 billion of transactions that year. All right. Wildly cooled off. 2023 was half that. 24 is half that. 25, there's been a bounce back. There's like $90 billion of deals that went down. But here's what's interesting. The valuations were literally cut down from like 8 times, and this is an EV to sales number, like 8 times EV to sales on like the next 12 months down to like 5. So almost half.
But I would argue that, like, as an outsider, I'm not a finance guy. There's times where I wish I would have taken more finance, but to me, as an outsider, that just looks like a reality check. It's not a.
It is.
It's not like, because we have been so wildly overvalued in this space. I mean, just so wildly overvalued in some of these companies.
I agree. But let me just tell you the distinction there, like in plain English. Like, your point will turn out to be true. Like, the private equity firm will find out a way to make the money, but all those options that they gave you folks are going to be underwater. So there will be a bunch of people that did work between 2020 and today that are not going to get paid for their work. And that sucks.
Yeah, that's kind of, if you are, I mean, that's what we chase, right? Is you chase the opportunity to go make it big. And it's like just when these things start to look good, if you hold too long, if you push too hard. A friend of mine has a racing, and he's a kart driver, and he's like, this is sort of like for us when you're trying to pass the guy, and you're getting, there's a turn coming, and you just got your foot on that throttle, and you're like, all right, I'm going to go a quarter second after that dude in front of me. Let's go that throttle. But you get around that corner, by the time you let go of the throttle, wall, right? Because you were a quarter second too late. And timing this stuff is important. and look, this leadership in these types of companies, you got to think, you're timing the cost, like money availability, the availability to bring cash in to fund your thing, the right market at the right time with the right buying audience with a problem that currently exists and is growing. That's a tough one. I mean, that's one that I don't think I could do. I mean, you figured it
So
out.
few people make real money. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a hard job, right? My cart analogy though, like for people, it's just like, remember, markets go up like a staircase. I think I've said this here before. They go
And down
up
like an escalator.
and down like an escalator.
Yeah.
So the part where I get to be unpopular is I may not have called the top stair in the staircase in my career, but I've never taken the elevator down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that takes discipline. So now the trick is, if you're these people and you bought in at this price and you made a model and you assumed all this stuff was going to happen, sooner or later you have to you have to give up the ghost on what you thought was going to be. And that's not easy to do either. It's tough for those people, right?
Well, and there's a point, and this happened the last time I watched this happen. Maybe it won't be this bad as in the 08, or the 2000s, but people that like held on past the point of which this became unprofitable for them, and they kept holding on and holding on and holding on,
Right.
and then you dip below zero, you're like, well, now I'm broke.
Yeah.
Like you could have gotten out with something. A little bit less, little bit less, little bit less, and zero.
Yeah. That's why you very rarely see me critique people's trades when they get out. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Even if I maybe think they could have gone a little longer or a little further, or the dollars were a little short, I don't usually critique that. I'm a lot more critical of people that miss their moment.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of those, unfortunately.
Does the security industry then just go through a contraction period where what are they like a correction, and like a market goes through a correction, we go back down to some I keep saying this because I think in terms of like world socio-economic stuff, like we're talking about carrying capacity, right? The earth can theoretically carry so many humans before we start to have problems with food and all that stuff. I feel like cyber's far exceeded its carrying capacity in the market. There's more volume than there's more widgets than there are buyers for, and we just kept adding to it, hoping that but my widget's better than my 7 competitors' widgets, which is why I'm going to win. And it turns out, even if it was, there still weren't enough buyers, and now it's rapidly kind of collapsing onto itself because there's just not the buyers.
I'll try to give you some things to think about. I don't know that I'm gonna answer your question maybe a little less directly than I've answered some of the other ones. I'll give you the things that are on my mind. We run a combination of Claude 4.6 and a product called Cursor to write our software. We just had one engineer do 10 human years worth of work in a weekend, and for a few $1,000s in tokens. And I got to see it demoed on Friday. We went through it in detail. It's passed our QA tests. And so there is a real and legitimate question about the viability and robustness of software companies. That's one. Two, for a long time, the moat was how many engineers you had. You would, people would brag about that, right? Oh, I have so many engineers, and that means I'm going to be so good. Like, that's not the moat anymore. And then the third one that I think is the hardest to kind of get our heads wrapped around, and it again very clearly ties back to this word certainty. It's like, what will the half-life be? Like, how temporal is the value of the new cyber thing? And cyber, I would just say, is the industry where you could come up with a very narrow band solution right? That may not last for forever, but it existed at a point in time and you could still monetize it. Like that half-life is shrinking.
That's
So
interesting.
you do this weird combination of you can write newer software faster, cheaper. Okay. And the thing that used to be your remote is actually your anchor. And the world is moving fast enough that the time these companies might exist is shrinking. It's harder to make these bets. So I don't think this will happen overnight, but I think people will clear out their books and try to get back to whatever is their baseline, and then they'll try to figure out what they do next. Do I think that means it consolidates? Yes, for a variety of reasons. I don't think that the big folks have to just get their checkbooks out and buy all this stuff. I think a bunch of it's going to wash up on shore.
Huh. Wow. Full scale carnage. All right. Bloody battlefield. Lots of dead bodies. Feels like
you can just watch Anthropic
movie.
Effect. I laugh, like, Anthropic means a certain thing if you go type in what it means, right? And like what it's turned out to mean is that anytime they announce that they just entered a industry, the industry collapses, right? Yeah. So I think that will be overdone too. I still think there's a market for enterprise software. I'm not like some doomer. I'm just saying, in the game of trying to pick certainties right now, pendulum swings are too wide.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting because security, and I know we're running long, but this is such an interesting conversation. Security, I think more than many other spaces in software, was you could over the weekend come up with a really cool idea, anti specific types of malware on this thing over here with these parameters, productize it. You could get a customer or two that had that problem. Some big vendor would snatch you up because they didn't have that, wanted you into that platform, gone. Sure. I think that's not a thing anymore. That becomes not a thing like overnight.
You'll be more discerning for sure, right?
Yeah. Because that innovator bit is no longer like, two people in the garage, like HP had that cool story, like two people in the garage tinkering. Yeah. Great idea. It took them forever to prototype, and like this prototype stuff got compressed.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, listen, just so nobody feels like I'm just throwing shade. I won one of my company cyber awards for how quickly we turned out a response to the use of LLMs. Very narrow band use case. You were there with me for that one, and we won AI Innovator of the Year. Yeah. By the way, I don't take anything away from that company or that innovation at that time, but it was everything you just described.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think it's a maturation. I don't think it's a moment for everybody to just like wildly freak out. I think, we'll create more capacity. I think demand will suck it up. But what I do think is the reality is there's going to be a big repricing effort that's going to take place. And just like, if you're an employee at any of these companies and you're really hanging around thinking to yourself, on the supplier end, like what's going to come of this? Like you should think twice. And by the way, maybe taking a role on a cyber team at a big corporation never seemed like the thing you would go do. But maybe now is the time for you to pick a company that has a lot more certainty and go help them. Because one thing that is going to remain true that we didn't talk about today, I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on it because this audience is sophisticated and understands it, is the cost of compute comes down in any way, shape, or form. The number of threats goes up.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. So, we're still going to see more threats. We're still going to see different types of threats. They're still going to morph and change, and all those things are still going to happen. The focus of today's conversation was how much does somebody pay for a company that is involved in that business? My assertion is they're going to pay less for a supplier for a while. So if you work for one of these companies, you got to just think about, like, is this the best use of my time? Might not be.
Yeah. I think that for many of us, there's never been a better time to open that bar on the beach that you've been thinking about, or a restaurant, or something that's It's I have a buddy of mine that's been in the trades for his entire career, and he always
Yeah.
laughed that someday my trade's going to far outpace yours. He called me the other day. He's like, "Hey, you know what AI can't replace? Your
Yeah.
plumber."
Yeah. And it's true. And it's causing, I mean, it's put a lot of pressure in the system. You know, unfortunately, I'll just give one shout out to parents that have college age kids. Many of us did the right things for our kids. We got them on the right path, and the path is changing. Um, so, you know, this has caused pressure in a lot of different spots. You know, I have one kid that fixes airplane engines. He feels very certain about his future. I have one that's in computer science. She's less certain.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's put a lot of pressure in the system for our kids too. So, um, anyway, man, like net, you're not nuts. I think the cyber thing is under pressure. It's going to take a little while to crack. It's going to be messy. Listen to your instincts.
Yeah. Yeah. I told some friends like tighten the chin strap, check your safety harness, and
Yeah,
buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride for I think the next easily 3, maybe 5 years.
maybe. You know, the other thing maybe that it's time for us to do is I can remember um, when you and I first met, this industry was barely an industry. And as a reminder for everybody, like Raf and I met when George Kurtz was behind me in line at an investor conference because CrowdStrike wasn't a thing. And, you know,
Yeah.
we'll tell you how long ago it was, right?
It's been a
But
minute.
it's been a minute. But back then we used to always talk about doing it because of the sense of mission.
Yeah.
So that part hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so anyway, just probably a moment for people to take an inventory on what matters to them and think a little bit about things. But no, I think you called me and asked me to do this to try to help you talk to your audience about whether or not what you're seeing is crazy or not crazy.
Yeah. I think I've seen it. I think some those of us that have paid attention have seen this too many times in the loop to say to be completely wrong. Like I said, I'm not super keen on the finance part of it. That's why I brought you on board, because you've got that insight. But it's just all the markers are there for what we can expect, and as my dad said, you can't climb forever.
Yep.
So
Right.
at some point, like the stock market can't just do this forever. At some point, it's gonna have there's corrections there. You just got to time this stuff. You got to have a plan B, have a way to ride it out. Adapt I think is a thing that's our industry has been pretty good about so far. I think we've hit a bit of complacency, and I think those that got too complacent are in for a bit of a rough go. But um, I think there's still plenty of opportunity. It's just like you said, take an assessment, figure out, mission's still important, and take stock of your surroundings well. Watch the sand beneath your feet, because it's going to shift as the waves hit that beach many, many times. And just make sure you're, on terra
Yeah.
firma as much as possible, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's right. Hey, listen, for whether you're buying stuff in cyber or you're selling things to a customer in cyber right now, your first pit stop should be, did I get it deployed and am I getting any value from it?
Yeah.
Like you all want to know that answer in this moment, whether it's because your CISO boss is going to walk down the hall and say, I can't get your new project funded until you know, give me something back, or it's you're the system engineer supporting some sales rep that says like this deal's coming in, or this renewal is coming in. Like, these are the moments you start to see churn, down sells, those kind of things. If you weren't making sure customers were getting the value,
Yeah.
so go do that.
Yep. Good wise words. All right. Hey, awesome having you on board. Thanks for spending all this time. I know we we got close to an hour here. We always plan for 30, and sometimes we just keep going, and I there's no chance of interrupting.
No, man.
But
Well, always good to see you. This crew that I don't, I get to see periodically. Just wish you all well. Hope everybody's happy, healthy, and apologize for maybe bringing some the cloud of practical news. But the other thing I'd say is this is the industry where I've always found the smartest and most resilient people. If anybody's going to find their way through it, it's going to be this crew.
Yeah, appreciate it. I think now is not the time to surround yourself with people that will simply blow smoke up your skirt, right? The proverbial like everything will be fine, it'll be great. Realism is important because preparedness is the thing. So
Yep.
thanks for joining us, Patrick. Best of luck in your endeavor, and
Thanks,
I
man.
look forward to the next one. Folks,
All right.
thanks for listening. If you're, I started typing and I lost track. I'm going to watch this a couple more times, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of clips that I post over the next couple of weeks of little nuggets from Patrick's conversation here. But I want to thank him. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening, you guys. We'll catch you on another time, another place, on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Thanks for listening. Ciao, y'all.